So I just saw a video by Fred called Being Along Now, where he was talking about space and time and made a wonderful series of remarks about time and what William James called the specious present, this notion of a now that's saddlebagged by retensions and protensions, right? It's also the terminology that Husserl uses, where it is admittedly always the now, but the now makes room for more than itself. That is, there now is an elongated stretch that has a retention of what was and an anticipation of what is not yet, and that retaining that awaits, that gathering is a now. The now isn't really a razor slice that's atomistically set off from the past and breaking into a wholly not already nascently present future. Again, it's an elongated stream. It's what Husserl also called longitudinal intentionalities that gather along. And I do think, Fred's examples of the way that we understand words in a sentence or the way that notes make up a melody are just wonderful examples. What I want to do is talk about that theme of being along now in terms of socio-historical effects and socio-historical developments. Not only are people living longer and we have greater technologies for expanding life, but simultaneously we're experiencing these hyper compressed information segments, these little time capsules or these little bottles where we're talking with one another, giving lots of information in 4 or 5 minute videos. That's pretty interesting. Like, what will be the experience of the passage of time to young people who have grown up on high potent, very distilled videos that are 4 or 5 minute long, and they're also living to be 120 or 130 years old? The reason I bring this up is, McLuhan has a great line that I think is sort of related to this, where McLuhan says, Johnny can't read, not because Johnny can't read, but because Johnny can't imagine long-term goals. Like, I wonder if there isn't something about Google search or search engine logic which is sort of, it tells you, don't worry about the future. You can get the information if you need it. Don't worry about internalizing knowledge. The knowledge is now external to you, and what you need is just instant access to it. This notion, right, it does seem to be sort of ever on the rise, and it seems sort of a continuance of the Platonic admonishment against writing, that writing would create forgetfulness and a kind of ignorance and an inability to differentiate knowledge from wisdom, all these other things. I think we see the same thing occurring with search engine logic or with people's ability to just instantly access information. And I do think McLuhan's point is really the most significant one. It's not, isn't it a great thing? I think it is wonderful that people can get all that, access to information, and how much that, really liberates people who are hardworking and industrious. Man, they have more resources to cultivate themselves and to grow than ever before. Part of the difficulty will be that there is a kind of long-term goal that I don't know is possible in the electric age. I mean, doesn't it seem like, this is sort of, I'm throwing out there as a question, doesn't it seem like in the electric age, where all information is sort of instantaneously present on the web, long-term goals look suspicious? McLuhan says in the mechanical age, people are always getting ready to live. And that's why when he says, the executive is a dropout, or he talks about take today, the executive is dropout, there are some people who are sick of that preparatoriness, always waiting to get ready to live. And I think there you start to see how the organic world is a world that's more instantaneous. It's a world that's right here now. And so the electric age is really wonderful for people who are already deeply grown and cultivated through book culture. If book culture gives you long-term goals, and let me just make this very clear. If you're going to sit down and read like a hefty tome, some massive book like Simmel's The Philosophy of Money, or if you want to read Sartre's Being and Nothingness, you're not going to just instantly digest it. I don't think you can just sit down. It will be a long-term goal to complete your understanding. You may have to read it several times. That's very different than, I think, what we expect when we do a Google search. When we do some sort of search engine query, it's almost like we're looking for a dictionary definition rather than an encyclopedic entry that then has further references. I think there are further references, but the person who's going to sit down and slowly read, and I mean take the time and make the time to be with one foot in book culture and to carefully cultivate an appreciation for books and the argument made over a book, I think there you're going to find a person who has cultivated a different sense of the experience of time. Like, I wonder how many people who are avid YouTubers, and I mean spend a lot of time on YouTube, the longest time that, this sort of the expanse of time that seems the longest for them is when they're uploading a video. There just seems to be a different experience of what that now is. I wonder if that experience of now that Fred was talking about, the degree to which it was 9 seconds or 8 seconds, as James says, or could it have been subject to historical variations? Were there some epochs of humanity, say high book culture? Like if you watch the Lincoln Douglas debates, it's really interesting. I mean, people would go there and they would give these very long disquisitions, and the audience would sit there. And now we live in an age where the political debates happen, and they give 5 minutes and then a response, 2 minutes for a response. You look, there was a time when Pulitzer gave award for the best book, and then it slowly went to the best investigative article. Neil Postman has this witty line where he says, "What's next? The best investigative sentence." I mean, are we really going to have, the Pulitzer give the best investigative tweet? It seems like this condensation is helping a quick distribution of knowledge, but it's narrowing this spans of what we mean by time. I wonder if that doesn't also account for the people who are on YouTube a lot, and the more they're on YouTube, I wonder if they don't see a 10-minute video to be almost an imposition. It's like people look and they say, more than a 2 or 3 minute video. I mean, you can say a lot in 2 or 3 minutes. If that's true, and I think it is true, you can say quite a bit in 2 minutes. What does that mean to our experience of time? The Romans had no notion of second. This notion of come here right this second. This is a very modern notion, right? At any rate, I really enjoyed Fred's video, and those are some thoughts on the question of being in the long now. Okay, thanks. Maybe the now is getting a little shorter. All right, bye.